The International Court of Justice on Friday ordered Israel to halt military operations in Rafah. It also ordered Israel to keep open the Rafah crossing into Gaza for the unhindered provision of humanitarian aid. ICJ rulings are legally binding, but the court has no concrete means to enforce them. Israel had argued before the court that an order to stop military activity would give free rein to Hamas extremists and prevent its army from rescuing hostages taken in the group's brutal October 7 attack. Prosecutor Karim Khan alleged that senior Israeli leaders, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, plus top Hamas officials, were guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity related to the war in Gaza and the October 7 attack. We're joined now by international lawyer, Professor Andre Thomas Huston. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Good evening.
What are the implications of the ICJ's order for Israel to immediately halt military operations in Rafah?
Well, it is with these type of orders very important to read the whole order, to read the whole text. And the whole text says, immediately halt its military offensive and any other action in the Rafah governorate, which may inflict on the Palestine group in Gaza conditions of life that could bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. So there is this conditionality to the order. It does not mean that all military use of force in Rafah has to cease. Only such use of force that would bring about a danger for the physical destruction of the people in Gaza. And that is a very different thing. And Judge Nolte, in his dissenting vote, clarified this, that the court order does not address military operations outside Rafah, and it does not address military operations that do not endanger the existence of Palestinians as a group.
Do you think the ICJ's ruling will impact the dynamics of the conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza? It did say that while it has some authority, enforcing is a challenge.
Of course, all the ICJ rulings have, by and large, had no effect. We remember that in 2022, at the onset of the Ukraine conflict, the same ICJ ordered Russia to immediately withdraw from the territory of Ukraine and seize any use of force. And hardly anybody actually took notice of this ruling. So what it will do, it will increase Israel's attention to the laws of humanitarian law, of warfare. It will encourage Israel to make sure that its use of force will only serve the lawful purpose of eliminating those responsible for continuing attacks on Israel. Daily, Hamas continues to fire missiles onto Israeli territory, hitting civilian targets, and to free the hostages. So for that, the order is very useful. It must be welcomed because it is important to remind the parties in a conflict not to commit war crimes, not to be slack on discipline, and of course not to pursue unlawful objectives.
As briefly as you can, could you give us like a synopsis or an analysis of the legal arguments presented by Israel and the prosecution before the court regarding the war crimes allegations?
Well, the Israeli defense team in paragraph 30 of their submission stated very clearly, the purpose of the Genocide Convention is not to have the court supervise the conduct of armed hostilities by parties to the conflict by the assertion of a genocide. Rather, the convention and the court's jurisdiction are limited to the grave crime of genocide. So Israel maintains that it is not the purpose of the convention nor of these proceedings to micromanage what happens daily in this conflict.
All right. Thank you very much for speaking with us. We appreciate your time.
It is my pleasure. Good evening.
Good evening.